The pro-corporate judges that President Trump keeps putting in the judiciary are getting younger and younger. And this means that our judicial branch could be in the hands of corporatists for the next 40 to 50 years. Let me tell you, I saw, of course, these stories are so rare because it's almost as if, it's almost as if media doesn't understand this whole problem. They really don't.
Right.
You and I have been talking about this story for so long that, I can remember 15 years ago, us talking about court packings taking place, and that all that the liberal, progressive Democrats really cared about were social issues, gender issues, same-sex marriage, abortion issues. And while they were paying attention to that, these corporatist judges were being appointed. They were typically judges who had worked for corporations for all their entire career. The only money they ever got from corporations was, as a lawyer, was from corporations. If it came down to corporation versus consumer, consumer always loses. That's the way they came up. The irony is that if you ask most trial lawyers who actually are in front of judges right now day to day, I am, for example, you'll find that they'll tell you that the Obama appointments were just as bad as the Bush appointments. The Bush appointments were just as bad as the Reagan appointments. The Clinton appointments were just as bad as all of them. For the most part, there's always obviously very important exceptions to that, but it's because these appointments always focus on social issues, not environmental or consumer issues or Wall Street versus consumer theft. They never focus there. What's your take?
Right. We have a lot of judges on the bench right now that are great on social issues, but they also did come from these big corporate defense law firms, and Obama appointed one who actually undid his overtime rule that would have given American workers a raise, but this was also a judge that was great on social issues.
Yeah.
And now we have these people here. The most recent one, Allison Jones Rushing, 36 years old. One of the youngest ever district judges. She has been confirmed. So you assume good health because it's going to be a high-paying job with great benefits. This woman can now sit on the bench for 40 to 50 years, depending on health. And that's just one. We've got Eric Murphy, Chad Riedler, 39 years old and 46. So not only do Republicans understand the real powers in the lower courts, but they also understand, how are we going to make this our legacy? Well, you do that by appointing somebody who's going to sit on that bench for 30, 40, even 50 years.
The pitiful thing is, I've been practicing for 36 years. I have appeared in front of some of the best federal court judges ever. Great trial judges. They know how to take an important project and move it down the road and get resolution. But those are the judges that don't come in as ideologues. They don't start off as ideologues. They usually, interestingly enough, they're usually trial lawyers. They start as trial lawyers. They then move to a judgeship. They're trial judges, which is a big difference. A trial judge is so different than an appellate judge. For example, this Rushing woman you're talking about, I think she's tried three cases to verdict her entire career. She's tried 9 altogether. She's only handled 9 cases, and she's only taken 3 to verdict. She's 36 years old. What type of insight, what type of world experience does she bring to a courtroom? When I compare her to some of these very, very talented federal judges that I've been in front of, they have a life experience. They've done something. They're in their 50s. They've lived a life. They haven't been the boy for corporate America. They've come through this diverse path. But we forget the impact that these bad judges have on our entire society. And there's no way you can't say, well, they're going to get there and then they're going to change. No, that's not how it works.
This is not a job you learn as you go. You have to know what you're doing from day one when that first case gets argued in your court. But to me, the big issue is that the Democrats, right now there's this big discussion, let's add seats to the Supreme Court to change the balance of power once we get a new Democratic president. And they're still only talking about SCOTUS. SCOTUS is going to hear 100 to 150 cases per year. These district courts, where 1 in 6 are now a Trump appointee, 7,000 cases a year, and nearly all of those, that's the final decision. So people like Allison Jones Rushing and Eric Murphy and Chad Riedler, they're the final say. Adding 3 more seats to the Supreme Court, 5 more seats, 20 seats, it's not going to do anything to fix the problem.
Here's part of the problem. As I look at this, this is a story, I never go to HuffPost. HuffPost is on my list of places to go for information. HuffPost is always about last. But this is a HuffPost case and story that I took because I wanted to talk about the fact that in the entire story, the discussion is these judges on social issues, on gender, on race, on abortion. There's no discussion. What about this judge where corporate versus consumer? What about this judge where it comes to workers' rights versus a corporate interest, or corporate interest versus environmental? It's like these writers, progressives, not just these writers, are hung up on one thing, that it's all about social issues. Those are important, but where it comes to the bottom line is Americans are upset at the judiciary more because they get a bad deal where it comes to things like economic fairness. But this story is a good indicator of how that happened. Farron, thanks for joining me. We'll pick up on these stories more next week, okay?
Thank you.
Newly leaked documents reveal that the U.S. government is secretly tracking immigration journalists, activists, and lawyers. RT correspondent Brigida Santos joins me now with the story. Brigida, who leaked the documents and what exactly do those documents expose in this story?
Well, the documents were leaked by an anonymous Homeland Security source to a San Diego-based investigative news team. That person remained anonymous because of the sensitive nature of these documents. Now, the documents reveal the scope of an intelligence gathering program known as Operation Secure Line, which monitored the migrant caravan and also tracked journalists, organizers, advocates, protesters, and even lawyers whose work focused on immigration issues and the treatment of migrants.
What kind of information, beyond, okay, so we have those kinds of specifics. We understand what can be used in that regard. Here's the interesting point. When you actually are targeting reporters and advocates and lawyers involved, it's pretty clear that the Constitution, regardless of what the setting is, if it's conduct by an American official, if it is an extension of a policy by the government that leads to these kinds of accusations, it's pretty serious stuff. Constitutionally, it's the kind of thing that actually could land people in jail if it goes as deep as what I suspect from the early signs of this. First of all, this is not legal. You would agree with that. What's your take on that?
So no, it's not legal. The American Civil Liberties Union says that it's unconstitutional for the Department of Homeland Security to single out journalists, advocates, and lawyers solely because they've spoken out against government immigration policies. While the government may not like this type of speech, as you said, it's protected under the First Amendment. In a statement, the ACLU says the First Amendment bars interference with freedom of the press, and it doesn't permit the government to retaliate against people based on their viewpoints. That means the government can't single people out simply because it disagrees with the messages that they're conveying.
Yeah, it's like we have forgotten the Frank Church hearings, and now this whole thing is ginning up again, spinning up again in the American public because, again, you know what I think of corporate media. Corporate media doesn't connect the dots here at all. They, rather than talking about this as a bigger constitutional problem that keeps ginning up more and more while we sit back, it's like a frog in water that boils it little by little. That's where this is headed. And unfortunately, we're not even teaching civics in school anymore. We're not teaching this kind of history in school anymore to where a millennial understands that we've been through this before and it was so bad that journalists were physically targeted. Lawyers were physically targeted because the federal government thought they had that kind of power. That's where this is headed. Brigida, thank you for joining me, okay? Every year, 1 million hernia surgeries are performed in the United States. Unfortunately, some mesh implants that are used in these surgeries have caused complications, including infection and organ damage that led to surgeries to correct those problems. If this has happened to you, learn more about the hernia mesh lawsuit by going online to hernia.law or call us for a free consultation about your legal rights.